Have you ever heard a story so strange, so unbelievable, that it just has to be true? Today, we're diving into one of the most bizarre and well-documented cases of alleged spirit communication in history. It involves a brilliant scientist, a skeptical priest, and a secret that only one man on Earth was supposed to know: the Pope's birth name. Our story begins in the early 20th century with a man named George Pellew. George was a writer, a poet, and a friend to many prominent figures of his time, including the future President Theodore Roosevelt. Tragically, in 1892, at the young age of 32, George died in a horse-riding accident. His friends were devastated, but this was far from the end of his story. Enter Dr. James Hyslop, a professor of logic and ethics at Columbia University. Hyslop was a hardcore skeptic, a man of science who believed that claims of the supernatural were nothing but fraud or delusion. He was determined to expose spiritualism as a sham. To do this, he began attending seances with a famous medium named Leonora Piper. Piper had a reputation for being incredibly accurate, but Hyslop was convinced he could debunk her. For months, Hyslop sat with Piper, documenting everything. He took every precaution, using pseudonyms and providing false information to trip her up. But something strange kept happening. During these sessions, a personality calling itself George Pellew started communicating through Piper. This spirit not only recognized Dr. Hyslop, whom he had known in life, but also correctly identified dozens of their mutual friends by name, sharing private jokes and memories that only the real George Pellew could have known. Hyslop was baffled. This wasn't vague fortune-telling. It was specific, verifiable data. But the most mind-blowing moment was yet to come. Hyslop had a friend, a Catholic priest from France named Father François-Xavier Gautrelet. Father Gautrelet was just as skeptical as Hyslop. He decided to attend a seance, but he didn't give his real name. He sat down with Piper, and the George Pellew spirit immediately came through. The spirit addressed the priest, not by his public name, but by his childhood nickname, one known only to his immediate family back in France. Father Gautrelet was stunned. He tried to maintain his composure and decided to put the spirit to the ultimate test. He mentally asked a question so obscure he believed no one could possibly answer it. He thought, who is the current pope, and what is his birth name? At the time, the pope was Leo XIII. The spirit, communicating through Piper, responded almost instantly. It correctly identified the pope as Leo XIII, and then it delivered the final impossible piece of information. It spelled out the pope's birth name, Gioacchino Pecci. Let that sink in. This was a time before the internet, before Google. The Pope's birth name was not common knowledge, especially not to an American medium or a deceased writer. Father Gautrelet was floored. This wasn't a guess. It was a direct hit on an incredibly obscure fact. He left the session a changed man, convinced he had encountered something beyond scientific explanation. Dr. Hyslop, the staunch skeptic, dedicated the rest of his life to psychical research. He documented over 150 sittings with the George Pellew entity, concluding that the only explanation was the survival of human consciousness after death. He published his findings in a massive report, challenging the scientific community to look at the evidence. So, what do you think? Was it an elaborate, impossibly complex hoax? Or did the spirit of George Pellew really communicate from beyond the grave, revealing a secret known only to the Vatican? This case remains one of the most compelling and perplexing in the history of paranormal investigation. Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy diving into historical mysteries like this one, make sure to subscribe for more. Have you ever heard a voice from the past? Not just an old recording, but a living, breathing voice speaking a language that has been dead for centuries? This is the story of patient S27, a case that baffled linguists, historians, and doctors. and a story that might just change how you see the world. In the late 1970s, a man known only as S-27 was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. He was quiet, withdrawn, and seemed to be living in his own world. But then, he started talking. The nurses and doctors couldn't understand a word. It wasn't gibberish. It had structure, grammar, and a distinct rhythm. It sounded like a real language, but one that nobody on staff had ever heard before. They brought in linguists, experts from all over the world. They recorded S-27's speech for hours, analyzing every syllable. The initial consensus was that it was some kind of elaborate personal language, a phenomenon sometimes seen in psychiatric patients. But one young researcher, Dr. Iris Thorne, wasn't so sure. He noticed certain phonetic patterns that reminded him of ancient texts he had studied. Dr. Thorne spent months, then years, comparing the recordings to the world's linguistic archives. And then he found it. A breakthrough. A single phrase recorded from S-27 matched a fragmented inscription on a piece of Sumerian clay tablet, over 4,000 years old. S-27 was speaking ancient Sumerian, a language that hadn't been spoken for millennia. But how? The man had no formal education, had never traveled, and had no access to this kind of academic material. It was impossible. But the impossibilities were just beginning. As the weeks went on, S-27's language would shift. One day he was speaking Sumerian. The next he was conversing in what experts identified as Proto-Indo-European, a theoretical ancestor of hundreds of modern languages. Then it was a dialect of ancient Egyptian, not heard since the time of the pyramids. It was as if a radio was tuning through the channels of human history, and S-27 was the receiver. The research team was in a frenzy. They were capturing languages that had only ever been theoretical, filling in massive gaps in our understanding of the past. They asked him questions, and through painstaking translation, he would answer. He described rituals from the Hittite Empire, spoke of the daily life of a merchant in the Indus Valley civilization, and recited poetry in Linear A, the still undeciphered language of the Minoans. His knowledge was too vast, too detailed to be a fabrication. The team started calling the phenomenon the speaker. They weren't just talking to S-27 anymore. They felt they were talking to history itself. But who or what was the speaker? Was it a form of genetic memory, an ancestral echo passed down through thousands of generations? Was S-27 channeling something, acting as a vessel for spirits of the past? Or was it something else entirely, something beyond our comprehension? One day, Dr. Thorne asked a simple question, "Who are you?" For the first time, S-27's demeanor changed. He looked directly at Dr. Thorne, a flicker of something ancient and weary in his eyes. He spoke in a language no one recognized, a tongue so old it seemed to predate all others. The translators worked frantically. The final translation was just 3 words: "We are listening." After that, S-27 fell silent. He never spoke another word in any language for the rest of his life. The recordings are all that remain, a library of lost voices locked away in a classified archive. The case of patient S-27 remains one of the most profound mysteries of modern science. It forces us to ask, are we ever truly alone? Or are the echoes of our ancestors still whispering to us, waiting for someone to listen? What do you think was speaking through S-27? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, be sure to subscribe for more. Have you ever heard the story of the demon that disguised itself as an angel? No, this isn't a fairy tale. This is a story about something we all encounter in our lives: deception. Sometimes, the most harmful things come cloaked in the most beautiful packages. Think about it. A too good to be true online deal. A friend who's always sweet to your face, but talks behind your back. Or even a bad habit that feels good in the moment, but slowly chips away at your well-being. These are the modern-day demons pretending to be angels. They promise you instant gratification, easy success, and endless happiness. They whisper sweet nothings in your ear, telling you exactly what you want to hear. The angel might be the voice that tells you to skip your workout just this once, or to buy something you can't afford because you deserve it. It feels good, right? It feels like a gift from heaven. But what happens after the initial rush fades? The skipped workout becomes a habit. The debt piles up. The momentary pleasure leads to long-term regret. That's the demon revealing its true form. So, how do we spot these imposters? The key is to look beyond the surface. Angels, true angels, promote growth, strength, and genuine, lasting happiness. Their gifts might not always be easy. They might require effort, patience, and discipline. True friendship involves honesty, even when it's tough. True success is built on hard work, not shortcuts. True well-being comes from making healthy choices, not from indulging every whim. A real angel doesn't offer a quick fix. It offers a path to becoming a better version of yourself. The next time you're faced with a tempting offer or an easy way out, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, is this a genuine angel, or is it a demon in disguise? What are the long-term consequences of this choice? Does this align with my values and goals? Learning to distinguish between the two is a superpower. It's about developing your intuition and your critical thinking. It's about trusting that the harder path is often the more rewarding one. For example, starting a new project can be daunting. The demon of procrastination will whisper, "You can do it tomorrow. Just relax today." It sounds angelic, offering you rest. But the real angel is the discipline that says, just start with 5 minutes. You can do it. That small act of pushing through the discomfort is where real progress is made. You're not just fighting a demon. You're building a stronger relationship with your inner angel, the part of you that champions your true potential. It's not about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about awareness. Every time you see through the disguise, you weaken the demon's power over you. You learn, you grow, and you become wiser. So keep your eyes open. Cherish the things that challenge you and help you grow, and be wary of the things that seem too easy. The brightest light doesn't always come from the most beautiful source. Sometimes, true guidance is found in the quiet, steady flame of self-discipline and wisdom. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that makes you think. See you in the next one. Have you ever heard a story so chilling, so strange, it makes you question everything you thought you knew? Today, we're diving deep into one of the most bizarre and unsettling cases in the history of paranormal investigation. The story of a spirit that claimed to be Judas Iscariot. Our story begins in the 1970s with a Catholic priest named Father Alphonsus Trabald. He wasn't your typical priest. He was also a professor and a paranormal investigator who dedicated years to studying a very particular case. It all centered around a woman from a small town in New York. For privacy, we'll call her Maria. Maria seemed to be a magnet for paranormal activity, but one entity stood out from all the others. This spirit, communicating through Maria during trances, made an astonishing claim. He was the ghost of Judas Iscariot, the apostle who betrayed Jesus Christ. Now, this wasn't some faint whisper or a knock on the wall. According to Father Trabald's extensive records, which include over 100 hours of audio recordings, this spirit spoke at length. It detailed its life, its regrets, and its eternal torment. The voice was described as deep, sorrowful, and filled with a pain that seemed to span millennia. It spoke of wandering the earth, forever bound by its infamous act of betrayal. What makes this case so compelling isn't just the claim itself, but the sheer volume of information the spirit provided. It spoke in Aramaic, the language spoken in Judea during the time of Jesus, a language Maria had no knowledge of. The entity discussed historical and cultural details of first-century Jerusalem, with an accuracy that baffled experts. It described the Last Supper not as the serene event we see in paintings, but as a tense and sorrowful gathering. It spoke of the immense pressure from political factions and its own misguided belief that betraying Jesus would somehow force him to reveal his true power and establish his kingdom on earth. According to the recordings, this spirit of Judas expressed profound remorse. It wasn't a malevolent demon trying to deceive, but a tortured soul caught in a loop of guilt and despair. It claimed its greatest punishment wasn't a lake of fire, but the eternal repetition of its betrayal and the constant awareness of the love it had lost. It described a state of spiritual desolation, a self-imposed exile from divine grace. Father Trabold, along with other investigators and theologians, spent years analyzing the tapes. Was this a genuine case of spirit possession? A historical echo reaching across 2,000 years? Or was it something else? Some psychologists suggested it could be a complex case of multiple personality disorder, where Maria had subconsciously created this persona, drawing from a deep well of religious knowledge she wasn't consciously aware of. Others wondered if it was a clever, deceptive entity merely posing as Judas to sow confusion and doubt. Regardless of what you believe, the recordings are undeniably haunting. The raw emotion, the historical detail, the ancient language, it all combines to create a paranormal case that stands in a category of its own. It forces us to confront profound questions about guilt, redemption, and what might happen to a soul after death. The story of the spirit that claimed to be Judas isn't just a ghost story. It's a deep, dark look into the abyss of human regret. What do you think? Could this have been the actual spirit of Judas, or was it a complex psychological phenomenon? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy exploring the unexplained, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown.